Coming up on the Broadway Shuffle, why this Elite Eight run is just the beginning for Texas Tech basketball and a top football target is in Lubbock. That and much more next on the Broadway Shuffle. Welcome to episode 68 of the Broadway Shuffle, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are glad you are here with Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler. I am Brennan. Hey, if this is your first time here on YouTube, we would really appreciate if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. If you're over on Spotify and Apple, make sure to follow along as well there so we can continue to give you the best show possible. Guys, we've taken a couple days of mourning, I guess. I know, Z, you've had a couple days to really process the Elite Eight loss to Florida. We've obviously listened to some reaction across the nation within tech spaces as well. Just a tough way to go out. But, when we're sitting here now a couple days later to process, what are your initial thoughts just on, what this team was able to accomplish still this season, the overall challenge that they were able to at least get to the Elite Eight, and then obviously maybe hit on the frustrating way you did end up losing to Florida there over the weekend.
Yeah, I think season overall, very hard to give this anything other than A to A plus. I mean, A would be the lowest I would go. A plus, I mean, Elite Eight, top 2 in the Big 12. You can't really ask for much more than that after being picked 7th in the preseason. I think Grant and staff did an excellent job. The players were great. Talking about the Florida game, it's funny. Almost anything you say about that game can be said in the exact same way if you're an Arkansas fan. Like you just needed one play to go your way there at the end and you would have won and you would have advanced. And Arkansas fans can basically say the same thing. So I remember talking after the Arkansas game, like, man, I hope I never have to feel what they had to feel in a March Madness game. And then quite literally 40 hours later, I got to do that. So tough. But, the one thing I will say about that game, I'm glad you got to go out on your own terms. I'm glad you shot well. I'm glad you had chance. You didn't feel like, man, if we would have just had chance or we would have had a healthy Darian or our shots would have fallen, we would have won. I think you had every chance or every opportunity to win that game. You kind of played it on your own terms. You put yourself in a position to win the game. You really did. And you just didn't execute down there at the end. And, hat tip to Florida. They found a way to capitalize and made some really tough shots there at the end. I'm not going to make any excuses or blame anything. I don't think the refs helped you. I think they missed a key travel there on the last possession with Walter Clayton where you hit that 3 to go up 1. But that's not ultimately the reason you lost that game. You lost because you couldn't hit the front end on the 1-on-1 and you couldn't get stops. But, that's basketball. That's how it goes. And that's what makes that tournament so much fun.
Yeah, Clayton, after the game, Charles Barkley was on the postgame show saying that the better team did not win that game. And you were able to hang with the 33-win Florida team that 20% of people have picked to win the national title, and now they are in the Final Four with a good opportunity to do that. And yet you looked like the better team for much of the second half. I mean, that is a testament to how these guys played together this year and really what they were capable of. I mean, this was a team that was capable of winning a national championship, and that does not happen very often. So what are your thoughts on just what you saw, just the kind of the coming into the game of like, hey, this is going to be tough, but yet you actually dominated Florida and they couldn't stop you for much of that second half?
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive to watch. Florida is like literally one of the best teams of like the last decade in college basketball, according to the metrics. And I agree with you. I thought Tech looked better than them for most of the game. I thought Grant definitely outcoached Golden. They really, in the second half, in the part that you're talking about, whenever we took that like 10-point lead, they really could not stop you at all. I thought our defense was incredible. Like, I don't think it was just Florida missing shots. Like Clayton didn't really get a clean look all night. Even the ones that he hit late in the game were like tough shots. And the refs rewarded him on a couple flops on threes, which is annoying. But yeah, I thought you played really well. Like, I don't think you could have played much better for the entire game. Obviously, down the stretch, you could have hit some shots. You could have hit some free throws. But I really don't even feel like Tech like choked the game away. Like, of course, we should have hit those free throws. But, I mean, they hit 4 threes in a row, and 3 of them were extremely tough shots. And then, you happen to miss the front end of 2 1-on-1s, which ironically, like Z pointed out, is how you won against Arkansas. So it's tough to swallow, but I don't even feel like we really gave the game away. They just got extremely hot at the end, and you had some tough misses. But yeah, I mean, super encouraging as far as like Grant. I feel like he really got everything he could have out of this group. And so, yeah, encouraging for the future, but tough to swallow today.
Yeah, Conrad, I mean, you see Walter Clayton hit 2 Steph Curry like threes, and you see Hawk obviously and what he was able to do, hitting a tough 3 over JT Toppin off of an offensive rebound. Things like that just kind of happen sometimes, but that was an insane run that Florida was able to go on to get hot, but a disappointing result for the Red Raiders ultimately.
Yeah, there's no shame in losing to Florida, right? It's a team that 22% of people picked to win the whole thing, and so losing to a team like that doesn't necessarily bother me. Obviously, it stinks that you lost, especially when you by a lot of accounts were the best team on the floor that night. But at the same time, it's still a season that you can hold your head high about and be proud of, because getting the Elite Eight, being one of the final 8 teams in the tournament, is a great thing for your program, is reflective, I think, on the quality of this team, of the staff, and of what we were able to do this year. So losing the way we did, yeah, it stinks. We could be playing in San Antonio this weekend. We're not. But at the end of the day, we lost to Florida, and if they go on to win it all, it'll be like, well, you lost to the national champion. How can you be that upset about it? Because they are a fantastic team. It would have been a lot more difficult to be sitting here having this conversation if we had lost to Arkansas, because that's a team that you were better than, didn't play as well as you could have, but you ended up coming out on top. Florida, you can tip your hat to them and say, you guys are a great team. Go win it all.
Yeah, Z, or go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's very apt. And you hesitate to say this as a fan. You never thought this team was capable of. I never thought. Could I envision Darian Williams with the national championship trophy, hoisting it over his head and saying Texas Tech is the national champions? Like, I could never get there. So maybe that helps a little bit. I always thought you were good enough to win the current game, but were you going to be good enough to win all 6? I don't know. And maybe that's me being a bad fan. What will sting a lot is that if Florida beats Auburn and somehow Houston beats Duke, and you could have matched up with Houston if you would have knocked off Auburn, that is going to sting a lot, because I feel like you wouldn't be favored against Auburn. You would have been a 5-point underdog, and you'd be about the same to Houston. But you've beat that Houston team before, and I think Auburn's worse coached than Florida is. I think you. And man, that is one thing I really want to get into. Golden has crushed teams all year schematically, and he looked completely lost against McCaslin and our army of like 6'2" and 6'3" guards. Darian Williams was playing bully ball with their 4 6'11" guys and making mincemeat of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's really simple, but they didn't have an adjustment. They didn't have anything they could do to stop that. And ultimately, they still found a way to win the game with supreme shot making. But I really did like Golden going into this game and came away not as impressed. Still a young coach that I like, but you could clearly see McCaslin's an older, wiser, kind of more grizzled coach, has seen some of this stuff before. And that was impressive. Just, I don't know. Clayton, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that is one of the biggest signs of encouragement going forward. I feel like Grant outcoached 2 of the biggest up and coming coaches in McCollum and Golden, and then Hall of Famer Calipari, who's probably on past his prime, but still. And I think
absolutely is past his prime.
Overrated in Conrad's terms.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, like a guy like Golden, I feel like he got outcoached twice by Danny Hurley and then by Grant, which I mean, it's not a shame to get outcoached by Hurley, but I thought that was a good sign moving forward. And I completely agree with you, but about the not seeing us hoist the title, but that's only because of Duke. Like,
it's only because of Duke.
If Houston beats Duke, I'm going to be really upset because I feel like we could beat the other 3 teams in the Final Four.
And not that you would have been favored. You would have been the biggest underdog at the Final Four. But if Houston, Duke, I just don't see there's any way you could beat Duke. But
and Z, to your point, I mean, to kind of help my grieving process, I'm like, well, there's no way you're going to beat 3 1 seeds to go hoist a championship trophy, right? Like, there's no way you're going to get through Florida and then Auburn and then Duke or Houston. That would be one of the most epic runs ever, probably, because it's not often that all 4
especially
1
this
seeds
year.
Especially this year with how good these teams are. So it would have been unlikely regardless. So it's like, if you want to, put it that way, like, oh, would you rather lose this game, how you lost it, or just go get crushed by Auburn or, Duke? But then you think about how you were better than Florida. It's like, I don't think this team would have got crushed, because I do think they're in the same arena as these big boys. And that's what this team was able to do. I mean, you can say, obviously Hawkins looked a little shell-shocked against bigger guards and Toppin looked a little uncomfortable against bigger centers, but then they still found a way to play well and win games and do things they needed to do. So it's like, if you could beat Florida and look that good against Florida, you could have done that against Auburn. I do agree that I think Duke probably would have been a different story. I mean, they're beating teams by a combined 23 points this tournament. So that is, a UConn type run from the last couple of years. That'll be tough. But, you just never know. And I think
You
what
never
makes
know.
it so hard about getting to the Elite Eight is like, you can taste it, you can touch it. We really kind of felt it. Like, it was like you almost gave me a little nibble, and I was ready to start celebrating. And then someone takes it away just like that. And it happens so fast. Like, I feel like it's 75-66. And I'm kind of like in the Grant position on the floor, like ready to kind of just like wait for one or two stops. And then boom, it's 77, 75 or 78-77. And I felt like my life flashed before my eyes. It was that quick.
Yeah.
And that's just hard. Like, I think if you would have lost that game by 20, like if a Duke Alabama situation happened where it's like, okay, we are just outclassed here. Hey, great game. Kind of like the Villanova game in 2018. We can hold our hands high. You competed. The fact that you looked like the better team and that you really were up 9 with 2 minutes plus to go, that's almost more devastating in my mind that you competed that well, But credit to the guys. I want to get into and transition to what this team really was like. And we can get into this. Like, the 2018 team was beloved, right? Obviously the national championship team. But this team kind of came into the year. We had Kai McKeon on, from the 3-man weave before the season. He was like, we think Texas Tech is Elite Eight good. And those guys watch a lot more college basketball than we do. And he was spot on. And he was absolutely correct. But we didn't necessarily buy in. Like, I think, we saw the Central Florida loss, the St. Joe's loss, and we were kind of like, oh, man, I don't know if this team is what their ceiling really is so far. But then you just felt like, man, they got hot. The Houston win, Chance McMillan, and we rallied around these guys. I mean, so much fun to watch. I think I'm more sad that I'm not going to see them play together again. That's how I feel. Almost outside of the loss. I'm like, man, if I want to watch D5 and Chance and Elijah and Toppin and Christian Anderson and KO and Fetty even, play together again. That's the hardest pill for me to swallow right now.
And one of the funny things about this era of college basketball is that we almost feel like it's a foregone conclusion that JT and Darian are gone. Like, you feel like the only person you have a chance at returning is Chance and KO and maybe Fetty. Whereas, in years past, to be like, oh, dude, we're running it back. We'll have JT again for 2 more years. We've got Darian for another year. We got Christian. So you feel like, yeah, man, we're going to be right back here. But there's so much uncertainty now. Like, you don't know who's going to be on your roster next year. You have no high school seniors. And so that uncertainty piece is tough. You don't know. You don't know. You don't know if you'll ever see Darian or JT in a Tech uniform again. That may have been the last time. You just have no idea.
Yeah, and Conrad, I think that's what's so hard about this era too. It's like, to that point, the 2018 team, for instance, we got to see Keenan Evans like grow up into a superstar, right? We kind of got to see it with D5 a little bit, but he wasn't our own to start. Christian Anderson's really the only guy on your roster that could become that sort of guy for you. It makes it harder because now players are leaving every other year. So when you do have a collective group that's so fun to watch, it's not going to happen as frequently anymore in college basketball. And that's sad for the sport. And it's a sad day to be a Red Raider too, knowing that was the last time.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not. These guys are all not going to play together again. We don't know. I mean, JT can come back. Darian can come back. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm assuming we'll keep Christian. We'll do whatever we can to make sure he's on a roster next year. But when you look at this era of college basketball and college athletics as a whole, you do kind of have to look at Texas Tech basketball and say, well, who wouldn't want to come play here? Who wouldn't want to come play for a coach in his first year, get so much out of that team, the 2023 team, and get what he got out of them, and so, or the 2023-24, and then this year the 24-25 team. I mean, looking at the progress that was made, why would you not want to come to Texas Tech? And it's hard not seeing the same guys that come out, that are going to be back again. We don't know, but at the same time, it's like, this should be a place that you look at and say, yeah, that's where I want to go, because that's a coach that knows how to win basketball games. That's a school that knows how to enjoy winning basketball games. And it's a school that is only on the rise when it comes to college basketball.
And to that point, Fran Fraschilla, who is a Big 12 homer, obviously calls a lot of Big 12 games, but loves Texas Tech. I think during the Houston game, he literally said, this is the craziest arena we've been in all year. And this is the best fan base in the Big 12. I don't know why you wouldn't want to come play in Lubbock. He said that. And then another guy on ESPN, I don't think it was King McClure, but it was someone else. They were there. It might have been the Iowa State game. Same thing. He was like, this is a basketball powerhouse. Like this program has been this good for this long. even Joe Lunardi in an article on ESPN I read this morning was like, I wouldn't consider Tech a blue blood per se, but like this program keeps finding a way to be, that's a third Elite Eight in 7 years. Not many programs in the last 7 to 8 years can say that. And that's where you were able to get to with 4 different head coaches, so the basketball program as a whole is in such a good place. So I'm very confident in Grant and the guys to replace these guys, but man, that was a fun run. It was just such a fun season. And, gosh, it sucks, man. It sucks to lose.
Yeah, and at some point, from content perspective, we're going to do a post-mortem on this season and talk about, guys that are gone for sure, Chance and Elijah, and talk about our favorite moments for them. I think Chance especially, a guy that's been here, 2 years, and he had just some really incredible moments. I'm going to miss him a ton in a Red Raider uniform. One of my favorites last 10 plus years. He's probably a top 5-ish, maybe top 7-ish player to watch. I mean, he was an electric scorer, and you will definitely miss him. There's nobody in the portal that can really replace what he does. And I enjoyed the way this team played basketball so much more than the 2018 and 2019 teams did. Now, I'll take a Final Four, a national title run. If you win 10-8, I'll take that any day of the week over flashy play. But this team was so fun to watch offensively, and you felt like you were just never going to be able to do that. And then all of a sudden, you have a top 6-7 offense in the country. It was a ton of fun.
Dude, I got into a very heated argument this weekend about one player on this team being better than a player on the 2019 team. I won't name it here because I want to get into it. It might even take a full hour to dissect it, but I'm passionate about that being correct. And I think this team was so much fun to watch. And I'll let you guys predict who I'm talking about, who I think is better than who the 2019 guy was. No disrespect to how good the 2019 guy. Maybe if you guys want to guess, but I don't want to give it away yet because I want people to have the reason to come back and hear what I think will be a pretty heated debate because I'm pretty.
Would Conrad have drafted that player on his team?
No.
Okay.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't have.
Hey, Brennan, we do have to give the listeners reasons to come back because we are into off-season content now, and so we can say and do and talk about whatever we want.
It's gonna be
we gotta give the people a reason to come back.
And to do
I
that,
hope y'all are excited for the Broadway Shuffle's takes on tariffs and geopolitics, which is what we'll be diving into for the next 4 months. So tune in.
You don't wait for the Young Politicians podcast here. But no, to do that, Conrad, that's a great point. You've got to like and subscribe to the video. I meant to do this at the beginning. We're not moving away from our subscriber of the weeks, and I apologize. We have had so many reaction videos. We haven't had time to really get to it, but Eric Peterson has been listening since day one. He's a former Red Raider. He's, big fan of the show, always texting about the show, listens all the drive. So shout out to Eric for listening. I know he'll be checking this episode out as well. So we want to shout out all of our loyal listeners out there too. So thank you for subscribing. We appreciate it. Hey, so quickly to transition before we get to another big news. Basketball ends. Football is ready to take over center stage again. But before we do that, I wanted to ask a question for Texas Tech basketball is, obviously, we just talked about all the players changing. And Clayton, you're going to be moving in and out. Players are going to be leaving. But your future looks really, really good here. And Grant, like you said, is out coaching top coaches in the game. I think Grant is a top college basketball coach in the country. Regardless of how the moving parts work with D5 and Toppin and KO and Fetty and some of these guys, what is your outlook on the next few years for Texas Tech basketball, and why are we in such a good position?
Yeah, I'm definitely high on the program right now. I mean, we talked about in earlier episodes, like making a second weekend with 4 different coaches in 7 years. I don't expect that to just stop now. I don't know what you guys feel like, but I honestly feel like a national championship feels more attainable with Grant than it did with Beard, even after 2019. Like at that point, that kind of felt like our one shot. Like winning a national title as a defensive team is really, really tough. And having an offensive coach like this that can put together like a top 25 or 30 defense feels like a better shot to win the national title. And I honestly expect us to get to a Final Four at some point with Grant. And then I know we mentioned Darion and Toppin, and of course, like the odds would probably be against them not returning, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Like there's a chance that they come back, especially like if they feel like they have unfinished business next year, like being so close to the Final Four. If you brought them back and Christian, I mean, you would be probably Big 12 favorites, maybe depending on what the rest of the conference does. But I know like Houston is losing a lot. bringing those three guys back, I mean, I feel like we'd have a shot to make the Final Four next year. And even if we don't, like, I trust Grant to put together a roster and then coach him up that will be competitive in March.
The thing I'm most impressed by Grant is how differently he's won at so many different spots. Like in North Texas, he adapts to his roster, adapts to what will win. He was playing the slowest tempo in the country, playing super defensive minded. 2 years later, he's got like ultra aggressive offense, bombing three, just totally different. The guy just wants to win, and he'll do kind of whatever it takes to do that and adapt his scheme to fit his players, while also recruiting players to fit the desired scheme that he wants to run. Because, if you ask Grant, what kind of scheme does he actually run? And that's what would he like to run in an ideal world? I think he could kind of take his pick because he can run all of it. He's done the offensive minded, he's done the defensive stuff. His teams have looked different each year, and that's really encouraging to me. That's what you've seen, the greats like Self, like his teams 6-7 years ago looked really different. Now he's had some consistent themes, like really dominant point guard and usually a very rarely like a good rim protector. And they'll do a lot of the same stuff, but variations. It's not, try this trick over and over and over again, which is what I feel like Rick Barnes is running into. That program's never made a Final Four. They play the exact same way every year. And to his credit, it's a really good system. It works and it's really successful. It's just never going to win you a title. And I feel like Grant is a lot more malleable in that sense to adapt to his roster and find a way to win. Whereas some of those older guys maybe aren't quite as adaptable.
It is crazy that Tennessee has never made a Final Four. That's insane.
Well, it was funny. Somebody was like, Tennessee's Final Four drought continues. And it's like, this is not a drought. A drought implies that there was like a rain before this. It's just never happened.
And Clayton, to your point on like you feel like Texas Tech can make a Final Four under Grant. Think about Tennessee. They've had great. Bruce Pearl was there forever. Rick Barnes. Those are two of the top coaches in college basketball, and that's a powerhouse program. They were number one in the 2000. From 2000 to 2010, they were number one for a time with the Kenny Lofton teams. They've been number one in the country, but since then, they've been to Elite Eights and had tough losses, and like they've endured a lot of March heartbreak, right? And so that's I think getting to the Elite Eight. It's like there's a team in Tennessee that's been good for 20 plus years, and they haven't made a Final Four. And you've been to 3 Elite Eights in 7 seasons. And it's kind of like, man, that's not easy to do. Like, that is very, very impressive. Even Florida, who was a powerhouse, multiple championships under Billy Donovan.
Back-to-back championships.
Right. First Final Four in 11 years. And it's kind of like, man, you take these things for granted, but you need to soak in when you make an Elite Eight. It is so hard to do that. And we saw this year,
it really is
probably the best Elite Eight stack of teams there's been in a long time with, all 4 1s and 2s except 1 3, and it was you. And arguably you could have easily been a 2 this year. So
I saw somebody talking about, from adjusted efficiency margins, that Purdue team in 2023, they got upset by Fairleigh Dickinson. That team was rated at about a 23.21. That was the average of the 5 seeds this year. So a 1 seed 2 years ago is the equivalent of a 5 seed. Michigan this year was rated the same as that Purdue team, which just shows you how elite the college basketball world was this year. Just incredibly good across the board.
That is so Texas Tech-esque that this is probably our second best team in program history, and it comes at one of the strongest years of college basketball ever. Same with the 08 football team and like the best year of the Big 12 ever. It's just so unlucky.
Conrad, thoughts on where Texas Tech is moving towards in the future, and just how excited you are about this program really being one of the top 10, 15 programs in the country.
Yeah, if you're a Texas Tech basketball fan, a Texas Tech alumni or fan, or you're going to be a student at Texas Tech, that you should be absolutely ecstatic about this basketball program, because I think we've just seen it time and time again succeed beyond all expectations, overachieve. And now that you've got someone that you not only feel great about as a person, but also who may arguably be even a better coach than Chris Beard was when he was here. You've got a guy like that leading this program. There's nothing that's not unattainable. Like Clayton said, we've got a really, really good chance to win national championship with Grant here, and I hope he's here for a very long time. And so when you've got facilities like you've got the best fan base in college basketball, you've got the best, university in the world, why would you not want to come play at Texas Tech? And so I feel really good about it. I think this offseason will be interesting to see what happens. But at the same time, you can already expect that you're going to watch a fun basketball team next year, and you're going to watch a team that is competitive. And who knows, we could be sitting here this time next year and be traveling to wherever the Final Four is, because we're going there. So I feel really good about this program, feel really good about the leadership we have, and excited to see our hashtag that's been on our Twitter, on our X, Extend McCaslin, come to fruition this offseason.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that'll happen. One thing I want to touch on, Grant, before we transition to football, is he to me is the definition of a true leader. Like, it's not his way or the highway
100%.
when it comes to coaching, to your point. Like, having Jeff Linder, they're coaching the offense in the huddle. Like, they showed it during the game. Grant is literally just staring at an iPad, and Jeff is calling up the plays and coaching, right? And it's like, and Grant, he's okay doing that. He doesn't need it to be him. He wants it to be for the guys. You could see in his post-game press conference how much he loved just those guys just talking to Chance. His eyes are closed, and he's just so like, in deep in his thought of like how much Chance McMillan meant to that team just to play that game. There's not many dudes like that coaching ball, man. I mean, and that means so much to Lubbock. I think he fits Texas Tech and Lubbock perfectly, too. And it helps when you do have some of the best facilities in the country now, and you are treating your school like a basketball program. This is not just some, additional sport at the school anymore. And I don't think it should be. And I know that's another thing we'll get into here in the offseason is, are you a basketball school? Should you accept that you're a basketball school? And I think we should definitely get into that, and it'd be a lot of fun. I know football might have a different say there, and a lot of fans might feel differently about that. But it's hard when your team is continually playing in March, and that is just something that's a reality right now in Lubbock.
One comment. It's hard. You think about football. It's king. It makes all the money. Basketball has had 3 seasons since 2017 that have been better than anything you've thrown on the football field since like 2010. With 3
2009, really.
Yeah.
Like 8. That's the thing. It's like March Madness too. What that does from a revenue perspective, and like what that does for attendance increases. I mean, they have the numbers, at admission rates and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is a much bigger discussion than talk about on this show. We'll get into it. But it's something I thought about today when it's like I'm reading, like I mentioned, the ESPN article by Joe Lenardi, and I'm like, dude, that's a good point. Should Texas Tech be considered this? And you look at like UNC and Duke, and obviously like some of these schools. Houston's definitely a basketball school. Duke is definitely a basketball school. Florida and Auburn, obviously SEC football. It's kind of a mix there, but it's an interesting. I don't know. We'll get into it.
Brennan, I am thrilled, and I can barely hold myself back to give my opinion on that, but I'm going to again for the sake of off-season content. But I do just want to share one last thought on Grant. Grant embodies what a we, us, and our program looks like. If you guys have ever heard that anywhere before, he embodies that to a T, and he has so much success doing it. So we, us, and our.
Man. Way to bring that in there. Man, well, we're going to be back on Thursday as well, talking more about, like Zyler mentioned, just favorite players from the team, looking back at the season, some favorite memories. So make sure to come check that out. And we'll also be releasing an episode on looking forward on like what targets, like how are you going to rebuild this roster, and what are the chances that D5 and JT Toppin are coming back. So make sure you continue to follow us along so you can stay up to date on that. But I do want to transition us now to football, because there is a gentleman who is in Lubbock. His name is David Bailey from Stanford. If you don't know what's going on at Stanford, this is kind of crazy. I don't know if you guys are following this as much as I am, but I'm a big Andrew Luck guy. And Frank Reich, who was the Indianapolis Colts head coach previously, has been hired as their interim head coach for this year, because Andrew Luck, who is now kind of the GM of Stanford, has fired their previous coach. He had some allegations going on with him. So Frank Wright is the interim head coach, and what that does for players is that if the coach is fired, they are now able to transfer. And Texas Tech has now joined, who is now the top portal target in the transfer. And what other team or school, would you expect to be right there with number one than Texas Tech, right? So he's in Lubbock, Z. He's there. Texas Tech, I don't know if oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Cody Campbell has is he already up there too? And if they're not going to let him walk away from the table, so Texas Tech not done in the transfer portal yet, still going after the big fish as they come into the ocean.
Yeah, he is a top flight edge rusher. He would be immediately the best one on your roster. He'd be a top 5 player on your roster without a doubt, if not top 3. I mean, this guy's an absolute monster. He's visiting Texas tomorrow. He's got a planned visit to UCLA. We'll kind of see what happens. Oddly enough, if you told me that Frank Reich and Bill Belichick are going to be battling it out for a conference title, would have never thought that would be Stanford and UNC.
That's
that would be
crazy.
those teams.
That is actually wild.
3 years ago, that would have been an AFC matchup that could have been a divisional playoff game. But yeah, super interesting. Yeah, you'd love to have him. He's going to be expensive. You can never tell when we're involved and Texas is involved. Is like, who's the leverage play? Is he using Texas to get more money from us, or is he using us to get more money from Texas? That's kind of how weird the roles are in this day and age with Texas Tech football transfer portals. So, but yeah, you get him, you'll have the number 1 defensive line in the Big 12 by a significant margin, and you may already have that. But this would make it an elite top 7-8 unit SEC level good. It would be unbelievable if you're able to pull this off.
Yeah, Conrad, he's 6'3", 250, graduate transfer, 16-game starter. He's recorded 111 tackles, 22.5 tackles for loss, and 14.5 sacks off the edge, 81 pressures over his last 3 seasons. He was among the first ACC pass rushers set to return in 2025. That is per ESPN data and research. So one of the top guys at the position in the country is currently in Lubbock.
Would he be a 1-year guy, or would he be a 2-year guy? I don't know enough. Just a 1-year guy, Z? Yeah. Why not go all in? Why not go all in? So I mean, it's a big deal, having him on campus. But again, I'm not surprised with the money we've spent, with what we've done, and I think. What's another however many? I don't even know what these guys are getting paid. They haven't shared that number with the Broadway Shuffle, and so I don't know what that looks like. But if it's just $1 million or 910, 1.5,
just $1 million.
What's another million? Yeah, what's another million? And if it puts us, because where you really win, and we've talked about this on the show, is you win in the trenches, right? You win with the offensive line, you win with the defensive line. So if you can bring this guy in and add him to this already formidable defensive front to have to attack and be able to go against these schools that we've seen, you're only going to be putting yourself in a better position to go win games, and really even with this addition to go dominate football games. So I'd be thrilled. I would hope that we just pony up, pay him, just give him a blank check and say, what's your number? Because if that happens, if this guy's on your roster, you're going to be looking at a very, very fun defense to watch.
Clay, we're
There's
not
only
very
one
used to
position that could be holding you back this fall. And man, I just really hope we get it sorted out.
Hey, leave that one blank too. We got to keep the listeners like, man, I've got a lot to come back to now. Now these guys are dropping a lot of nuggets. Clay, it has been quite a while since you've dominated football games, to Conrad's point. But it does start in the trenches. I mean, we know that to be true. Defensive line, offensive line, we've seen it. Even last year, offensive line wasn't really what you hoped it would be. Obviously, on the defensive front, it wasn't either. So addressing those needs in the portal has been huge for Texas Tech. But Bailey would obviously kind of take that to a whole nother level and only increase the already extremely high expectations for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you got him, that's got to be the best defensive line you've had at Tech in a long, long time. And I feel like if you have a elite defensive or offensive line, that's how you can avoid getting beat by like bad teams. Like if your defensive line can just overpower their offensive line, that makes it really hard for them to win. And I haven't been keeping up with the football portal with basketball going on, but I just looked at On3's rankings. So if you got him, he's the number 1 edge rusher in the portal. You would have him and the number 8 edge rusher height, and then you would have the number 1 and the number 5 interior lineman, which would be absolutely insane. So I hope we land him. I think that would, increase your odds to make the Big 12 title game by quite a bit.
Z, should we now? I mean, obviously there's these portal guys, and we've seen it in basketball and a little bit in football, but it doesn't always work. I mean, i.e. Florida State a year ago, right? It's up to Joey and the staff to make sure these guys can play well together, understand schemes, take approaches, and then go actually on the field and dominate, to Conrad's point. So should we be like this? I don't want to say we're confident, but like we're obviously very eager and excited, especially as we get into spring ball. The spring game is now only 3 weeks away. they're less than 3 weeks away, so it's like, should we kind of reset our expectations, or are we like, hey, we're all in here? Like especially if you get Bailey, like you got to go win 10, 11 games.
Yeah, the thing about the portal is it's so variable. Are you going to be SMU or are you going to be Florida State? Both teams that kind of went all in on the portal. One made the playoff, and one had one of the worst seasons in their program's history. So you'll hope that you're the former and not the latter. I think the expectations will just continue to get raised, which is so funny. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like Joey's had seasons with 8 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins, and now he feels like he's under a ton of pressure after having the best 3-year streak that any coach has had starting at Texas Tech. And he feels like he's under a ton of pressure. And it feels almost all self-imposed. You've got to hope that he's ready for that the coordinators are ready for that. You just don't know. But I think the expectation, you add Bailey, I think you're going to add some more guys in the portal. It's 9 to 10 wins or bust.
Yeah, well, in a way, you're right. It's self-imposed, Conrad. Like Joey has brought that attention, and even the media attention and the portal additions. He's brought that to the national media. He's brought that to the fans. Where we as the fan are now expecting, okay, like you're talking the talk. And we've obviously discussed on this show how Joey does do that, and he's even said, maybe I've said a little too much at times, but that's who I am, and I'm going to be me. And credit to Joey for being that, but. Now it's like, all right, dude, like you've talked and ESPN's written about it and CBS and all these guys have written about the top portal class being in Lubbock, and even the basketball success and even prior baseball success. Like we've seen track, basketball, baseball compete for championships since football has even had a 10-win season. I mean, it makes me feel like maybe 9-3 would be okay. Like, or should this be Big 12 championship or bust?
This is the biggest football season in Texas Tech football history. It's not, I don't even think it's close. And the reason being is because of what you've done in the portal. You've spent so much money. You've had the best start to any coach ever, even since Mike Leach was here, with Joey being here. If you're going to go spend all this money and all you get out of it is 9 wins, yeah, that's not, I don't think that's going to sit well with anyone. I don't think that should sit well with anyone because yes, you've never played in Arlington for the Big 12 title game, but you were a couple breaks away last year from that happening. But with all the investment, new coordinators that are both fantastic by all accounts, talent on both sides of the ball that is something we haven't seen in a long time, coupled with the money invested in it. If you don't at least play in the Big 12 title game this year, I get why people would be uncomfortable saying that because you've never done it, but with the investment, with the hype, with the leaning into what this program is and can be with facilities, if you don't even just get there, that's a failed season. And that's the position we put ourselves in. And that's a position that I want to be in because I don't want to be wondering, oh man, are we going to make a bowl this year? I'd much rather be in this position, knowing that the talent that you have is epic on both sides. Than, oh man, are we gonna hit the 6-win mark and get to go play in some meaningless bowl that shouldn't even be played anymore? So I think it's a tremendous opportunity for you, but at the same time, I do think that the expectations should be high, even if it feels a little uncomfortable for Tech fans.
Clay, agree, disagree?
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. And I do get what Conrad's saying about like it's uncomfortable that an expectation is something that we've never done before, but also like getting to the Big 12 championship has never been more accessible. And, whenever you had UT and OU in the conference, even though UT was very underperforming towards the end of their Big 12 career, they always had superior talent to the rest of the conference going into the year every single time. And now, like, I'm not saying you will be outmatching other teams, but like you are on par with the top of the conference. So I think, if you're going to spend all this money, like it would be stupid not to expect, not even as fans, but like as coaches or people in the program, if you're going to do this, you might as well expect to win the whole thing, or else why are you doing it?
Well, and that's what's so hard though, because like it's, Texas and OU leave. And you're thinking, all right, you have the chance to take the mantle of like the best, A&M's been gone for a while, to take the mantle of the best program in Texas. And you go and you lose to TCU and Baylor last year. And so it's like expectations going into last year. We talked last August when we started the show of like, hey, this is your opportunity to get into favorable schedule, when we didn't do that. And we have obviously addressed the pain points in the portal. But I'm a little anxious of like, are we putting too much onto this? Like, is this, should we be okay with 7-2 in conference and a 9-3 record or a 10-2 record, and maybe you miss Arlington by a game, but you get to go play in a New Year's Six Bowl or what have you. I don't know. It's something I'll have to really think about all summer, getting into what will be, a very big season. To Conrad's point, Conrad, I don't disagree with you. I think the hype maybe in 2007, 2008 was probably fairly comp when you had Harrell and Crabtree returning, to a very good offensive line. But even then, Mike Leach probably wasn't saying like, hey, we're going to go win the Big 12 next year. Like Mike was probably talking about candy cane or whatever, or candy corn or whatever it was. And, Pirates, I don't know. So
the difference
the national media is on
much more money, more money, at least that I wasn't, I'm not really into the tech lore from 2007, 2008 in terms of, what that looks like, in terms of money spent. I hope we weren't spending any money, but at least publicly, there's been much more money spent on this offseason. That's why I said what I said about this being the biggest season ever, because you've never spent this kind of money on a football team before because you weren't allowed to. We weren't doing what everybody else was doing. I'll just take the high road there.
But I'm sure Gerald Myers didn't want to do anything to help Mike Leach in 2007, 2008, probably. So
why would that be, Brendan?
I don't know. I just, I don't know. Something happened in 2009.
Conversation for another time.
There's another one, man. We're dropping a ton of nuggets, but we'll get into that later as well. I don't know, Conrad. Finish your thought, though. I apologize.
No, I'm done. We spent more money. With money comes expectations.
The 2008 team was way more hyped going into the year than I feel like we will be in the national perception, though.
I mean, you were ranked 12th, I think, to start that year. Yeah.
We'll probably be 24th, maybe. I think you'll get some cursory top 25 votes if you're even ranked.
I think we might crack the top 20, like 19.
I think you're starting preseason SP plus at like 35. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, when you've got a quarterback that had 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and over 3,000 yards and stayed healthy for 12 straight games, even when he wasn't at 100%, you've got all this talent, how could you not be top 20?
Conrad, I cannot wait for 5 games into the season, and you're calling for Will Hammond to be the starter. I cannot wait.
That's the beauty of this podcast, is I can change my opinion all the time.
I've been meaning to ask you, Conrad, how's Barron doing, man? Have you guys been going on walks in the park and hanging out? Is the romance staying strong? You guys need some help.
I think Barron actually is coming on the show next week to just tell us a little bit about his recovery and how the cannon's feeling and how he's ready to go for, I think it was like 40 touchdowns he told me next year. So I don't know. We'll see.
You talk like 28-7, like it's like the sexiest number ratio ever. I'm like, man, I don't.
For Texas Tech quarterback since Patrick Mahomes, not named Nick Shivanick, it's pretty much you should hang it in the Louvre. I mean, it's pretty good,
Yeah, I cannot start this tonight.
It is. All right. Well, because Z doesn't want to get into it tonight, we'll wait a couple weeks. But let's get to our Tommy Tubberville. Z, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, my Tommy Tubberville of the week. This was an easy one. It took me approximately 2 seconds to think of this guy. Kevin Willard, the former head coach of Maryland, basically took the Villanova job while he was on his March Madness run. And I get that, but you have an opportunity to go play for a national title. And they asked him at a press conference, hey, what is it like? What are you thinking about the Villanova job, Maryland, yada, yada, yada. And he answered, I'm really worried about Walter Clayton and defending Florida and making sure that we are really well prepared. Wouldn't even answer questions on it, left in a really scummy manner. And this is a guy that's been to like one Sweet 16 in his last 12 years or something like that. Like not even that good of a coach. Really weird situation, handled it very poorly. It's a textbook teaching example on how to not leave a job. So Kevin Willard, you are my Tommy Tubberville of the week.
Yeah, that's an odd situation, man. Thankful that that's not you. So, and they have some players in the portal as well too already, that are ready to rock from the Crab 5 starting. But he was right though. He did need to worry about Walter Clayton, as we very well saw. That was a good thing to worry about. So Clayton, who is your Tommy Tubberville of the week?
Yeah, mine is somewhat related to Zyler's, but mine is any blue blood programs with job openings this offseason, mainly speaking to Villanova, Indiana, and then Texas. I realize that Texas is not a blue blood, and honestly neither is Villanova, but they all claim to be. And they hired Kevin Willard, who's made it out of the first weekend one time in his career, Darian DeVries, who had a good year at West Virginia, considering the roster they had, but also missed the tournament. I think they went like 18-14. And then Sean Miller, who, is a
Sean Miller
coach. he's probably the best hire of the three, in my opinion. But for a school, with the money that Texas has and the pedigree that they claim their job to be, a little underwhelming. So my Tommy Tuberville of the week is the college basketball blue blood programs with job openings this offseason.
That's very solid.
That's a good one, man. Conrad, who is yours?
Yeah, Zyler, you mentioned that your Tommy Tuberville took you about 2 seconds to come up with. Mine took half a second to come up with. It's the Arkansas fans that were in our comments last week as we prepared to fight the Razorbacks. Is our time for a hog hunt episode. I will take 100% credit for that title. I'm very proud of that. I think that should be hung in the loop as well. As they found that video and commented on it and said a bunch of very, very hurtful things to our feelings here on the Broadway Shuffle. We're all about kindness and care for one another. You lost the game, and you were up 16 and you lost to us, and I don't really see very many Arkansas fans in our comments anymore. So Arkansas fans, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
There was one guy actually that specifically called out Clayton and was like, "Yo, when's the new pot dropping, Clay? I want to hear your thoughts on your loss to Florida." Like, dude, you lost to us. Like, you don't get to come in and
did Arkansas beat Florida at all in the regular season?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, I'm no Arkansas basketball expert, although I am an expert on the fact that they did lose to Texas Tech and that Coach Calipari is overrated.
Yeah, that is
They should
something you're an
just
expert at.
Keep using the health excuse that they used the whole time. I mean, Fland and Darrow barely played, so it's because they weren't healthy.
Yeah. I hope that guy subscribes to our channel and listens to that comment. Guys, we're all about, kindness and fairness here on the Broadway Shuffle, but we're also about accountability. And for that reason, I think this is the first time this has ever happened on the show. I've been called out. But as a collective unit, I don't think we've ever been a Tommy Tuberville. And that's who I am, is mine. It's us. The Broadway Shuffle is my Tommy Tuberville of the week. And the reason is because we had a thumbnail and it literally said, "Don't pick Florida" in it. And we talked about why, as the one seed, hey, don't pick them. Like, maybe Tech will get them, St. John's, maybe UConn will get them, but you don't want Florida in your Final Four. And all the bracket nerds out there were saying all the one seeds are going to be in the Final Four this year, and they were actually right. So for a change,
I picked them all.
Yeah, Conrad probably picked them all, and so because Jay Billis told you to, and so. It's it's
look at Jay Billis.
For a fact that's what you do. But anyways, it's us, man. We apologize, and if you listen to us and you had Florida losing to UConn or Maryland or even us, which I know a lot of people in our bracket challenge did, we sincerely apologize and take ownership of that. And for that reason, we will be your Tommy Tuberville of the week. So
that's good. That's some good honesty, Brennan. I appreciate that.
Hey, what we have to do, man? I mean,
did y'all
go ahead, Clay?
I was gonna say, did y'all see the CBS magician who revealed that he picked the right Final Four?
It's so ridiculous.
That was the dumbest. Okay, he opened this box that was sealed on March 20th, and he was like, "I picked Florida over Tech, Auburn over Michigan State, Duke over Bama, and Houston over Tennessee." And they're like, "What?" It's like, buddy, you picked all one seeds to be two seeds and 1 3 seed.
Did y'all see that guy that has a perfect bracket? If he would have picked the Vanderbilt St. Mary's game right, he would still have a perfect bracket.
No, that's the only game he missed.
Yeah, I last checked on it in the Elite Eight, but he had all those teams. He had missed one game, and he had all the favorites winning. So I think he still has a perfect bracket, or he would have had a perfect bracket.
Wow, that's wild. I guess this would have been the year to.
This would have been the year.
One close to, because I mean, if you literally, I always do like a chalk bracket every year along with my real bracket just to see like what the percentage would be. If you just went no upsets, like across every round, best seed wins. I think you'd be like at 97.8% this year. So like knowing that, and then you just pick a couple other ones, it would have been, pretty easy to get to 99.5, 99.7. Like my mom was at 99.4 before Tech lost. So that tells you all you need to know really about the bracket challenge, which we are going to, let you know who wins that bracket challenge, the Broadway Shuffle challenge, on our episode probably next Thursday, because the championship game is Monday night. So we'll let you know who wins there as well. So Z, why don't you close us out with some Tech trivia question, and then we will see, I don't know what's next for Texas Tech.
Yeah, if you're thinking about chalky brackets, the last Final Four that had 4 1 seeds was in 2008. It featured North Carolina, Kansas, Memphis, and UCLA, all the 1 seeds from their respective region, even though Memphis would go on to vacate all the wins from this season because of questions regarding a Derrick Rose and his eligibility. However, there was a team that made the Elite Eight as a double-digit seed to face Kansas in the Midwest Regional, one of the best Cinderella stories of all time, featuring a future NBA star. Does anybody know who this 10 seed was back in 2008?
Ooh, that is a great question.
Future NBA star.
Yep. He is the one player from this school I think I can name.
2008 10 seed. Can you give the conference?
I have no clue.
I do not know what conference they were in. They currently are in the A10, which is like George Mason.
Is it VCU?
It is not VCU. This school beat Gonzaga. They then beat Georgetown. They then beat Wisconsin and then went on to play Kansas.
Wow. I'm stumped,
I have
dude.
no clue. Yeah.
I don't know. Can you give me the player? Can you give me the player?
You'll get it if I give you the player. He is now, okay, he was just recently.
Is it Steph Curry or Davidson?
It is. It is Davidson and Steph Curry. They were the 10 seed that year.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know they were
Made it
10.
all the way to, they made it all the way to the Elite Eight.
And they lost to Georgetown, right?
They lost to Kansas by 2 in the Elite Eight.
They lost to, okay. Was that the year they beat Georgetown then? Or when was the year that
they beat Georgetown.
They beat Georgetown. Yeah, okay.
Yep. They beat
What's
Gonzaga by
scary
6,
about that
Georgetown
is-
by 4, and then crushed Wisconsin.
Wow.
I did not think Steph Curry was that old.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's 17 years ago.
He had so many injuries at the beginning of his career that it felt like he started his NBA career way later.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's old.
Yeah. Great question, man. I was totally stumped.
That's a good question.
I did not know that Davidson lost to Kansas that year. So
I was hoping you were going to ask what the 4 1 seeds are because I have a shirt from that Final Four, so I have that etched in my brain.
Nice. Derrick Rose. And a great title game. One of the all-timers with the Mario Chalmers hits the shot, I think.
Who was that? Man, I'm blanking. Conrad, you might know the answer. Who was the Memphis coach there that was part of the allegations on that Derrick Rose team? Do you have an idea?
Oh, what's his name? Oh, John.
It's some
John
dude.
Overrated Calipari.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man,
Okay,
that's
what I thought.
crazy. Yeah.
That's what I
Wow.
thought.
That just reminded me. Can I make an honorable Tommy Tubberville of the week? That
Of
just
course.
sparked something in my brain.
Of course.
My second Tommy Tubberville is going to be Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio. He tweeted the other day that Kelvin Sampson can take players you've never heard of to the Final Four. It's like, dude, I think you just might not watch basketball if you haven't heard of LJ
Jawan
Cryer.
Roberts.
Yeah, Jawan Roberts, Milos Uzan. So that's my secondary Tommy Tubberville.
Clay, I don't
can't
know what's
believe I
more
forgot about that.
impressive. The fact that like you're able to bring that off the cuff, or that you've had consistent like Utah beat reporters, Kansas, Kentucky. You've got it all on Twitter.
I got boots on the ground.
Dude,
Very plugged in.
you've got the Twitter space figured out, man. That's
Clayton is lurking. He's
yeah,
lurking, waiting to make you his Tommy Tubberville.
If you're out there and you post something on X, just know that Clayton Anderson will find it, and it could be on the show. So that's good. That's a good lesson for all of us tonight. So, all right, guys. Well, that was a lot of fun. We'll be back later this week, going over more on what Texas Tech basketball might be looking for in the portal, maybe some targets as more people enter. And then, yes, spring football is here. Like I mentioned earlier, the spring game is only a couple weeks away. So we will be here giving you all the storylines about that and what to look forward to there as well. And we obviously have a lot of debatable episodes to get into on some hot questions with some hot takes. So you will not want to miss an episode. So again, feel free to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and feel free to share it. We love when people share our show. Come find new fans as well, new shufflers all across the world, as we are finding out in Oman. And I don't know, Brazil was another one as well. So we thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next time on the Broadway Shuffle. Wreck 'em.